Uncle Gobb and the Dread Shed, Chapter 12. The worksheet continued. The worksheet said Billy was wearing a blue hat. Then it said, what colour was Billy's hat? Malcolm stared at the piece of writing. He looked for a clue to the answer. Was there anything to help him answer the question? No. This sort of thing made Malcolm worried and sad. Psst, cracker snacker. What's the answer? Malcolm said in a psst sort of voice. Blue, said Cracker Snacker. I'm not so sure about that, said Malcolm. So he wrote underneath, I don't know. Now, just at that moment, his teacher, Mr. Keenley, was walking past. Well, 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 said Mr. Keenley in a kind voice. Let's see if I can help. Billy was wearing a blue hat. What colour was his hat? When Mr. Keenley said the word blue, he opened his eyes wide, pushed his mouth forwards in a Keenley sort of way, and made his finger draw a wiggly, underliney sort of line. Malcolm had often noticed that Mr. Keenley had this interesting way of explaining things. If you didn't get what he was telling you, or if you didn't understand what was on the worksheet, he would just say it again, but with loads of eye-opening, mouth-moving, finger-wiggling things. This meant that Malcolm just said what he had said again too. I don't know, sir. Mr. Keenley frowned. Billy's hat is blue, Malcolm. Malcolm looked at Mr. Keenley. Mr. Keenley, I can't write that in the gap, sir. Why not? Said Mr. Keenley. Because I don't know for certain that the hat Billy is wearing is his hat. It doesn't say that it's his hat. So I can't write down his hat was blue when I don't know if it was his hat. Mr. Keenley frowned, even more frownily, which meant that the small piece of skin between his two eyebrows made a kind of fold, which Malcolm stared at and wondered, if he planted a sunflower seed in it, would it grow into a sunflower? Let's just say that it is Billy's hat, said Mr. Keenley. And when he said is, he did all the eye-opening, mouth-pushing, finger-wiggly thing again. Malcolm felt sweaty and uncomfortable and sad. Cracker Snacker looked at Malcolm and tried to help him by beaming helpful feelings at him through his fingertips. Like that. See, look. It didn't work. No, sir, I can't do that, said Malcolm. That would be wrong. That's how you get questions wrong, sir. I don't want to get any of my questions wrong. My Uncle Gobb says that I must get all my questions right, or I will end up as a good-for-nothing, standing about in the street corners, expecting a free ride. Well, Malcolm, said Mr. Keenley in his most kindly as possible voice, I can tell you that the answer to the question is blue. Billy's hat was blue. I've got the answers here, and if you put blue in the gap, you'll get, let me see, 1 mark. Yes, 1 mark. How about that? 1 mark. Not bad, eh? Better than a kick up the bum. Malcolm could feel his eyes getting fizzy. That's what happened when people said stuff to him that didn't fit with what he could see. Things got fizzy and sad. But sir, he said, the answer you've got on your piece of paper could be wrong. Cracker Snacker said, don't worry about it, Malk. It probably isn't wrong, you know. Just put blue. And he tried to beam some more helpful feelings at Malk through his fingertips. Just then, 2 children on another table started practicing licking each other's noses. They were called Ulla and Spaghetti. And look, licking each other's noses. Mr. Keenley saw them with the eyes he had in the back of his head and said, Ulla, Spaghetti, could you do that nose-licking thing later, please? We're doing the Billy worksheet thing now. He turned back to Malcolm. The answers I have on my piece of paper may be right. They may be wrong, Malcolm, my old matey. But they are always the answers. It doesn't matter if they are right or wrong. They are just the answers that you have to put. Billy's hat was blue. That's the answer. I think you can guess what he did with his eyes, mouth and finger when he said the word the. Then Mr. Keenley walked on to help the next child. Malcolm looked again at the worksheet. Suddenly, to his amazement, he saw something else. At the very bottom, in tiny, tiny writing, it said, Gobb, education. Gobb? Could it possibly be something to do with Uncle Gobb? Hey, Cracker Snacker, Malcolm whispered. Look at that. Cracker Snacker looked and saw the Gobb education writing too. Cracker Snacker put his finger onto his face so as to look like a serious person on TV and said, could this be something to do with the person who wants you to do more homework and who you would like out of your house? The one who bamboozles and confuses you, hmm? Malcolm nodded. Just then, two children on another table started doing an experiment on how hard they could bite each other's fingers before the other one said, Stop! Malcolm looked at the next bit of writing on the worksheet. It said, it was raining. And underneath that it said, why was Billy wearing a hat? Then there was a gap. Malcolm started to think of all the reasons why Billy could be wearing a hat. He turned to Cracker Snacker. I've got several answers to why Billy is wearing a hat. He showed Cracker Snacker his list. On his list it said, he liked hats. His mum told him to. He liked that hat. He thought that when he walked about in that hat, he looked cool. He hated wearing the hat, but he thought that if he wore a hat, people wouldn't notice the fact that he had cut his hair himself that day and it was all wonky. He liked wearing the hat because once a bully kid had stolen it from him, and now wearing it showed the bully kid that he wasn't afraid of him anymore. Yeah. Cracker Snacker looked at Malcolm in a wondering sort of way. Or you could just write he was wearing the hat because it was raining. Malcolm looked back at Cracker Snacker. Cracker Snacker breathed in, nodded, looked again at Malcolm in an admiring sort of way and said, but yeah, I get you, Malk. Saying that it was because it was raining might be boring. Malcolm thought he had better choose one of his answers pretty quickly. Uncle Gobb once told him that the thing about exams is that it's all a matter of getting on well. So here he was. Okay, it wasn't an exam, but he had to get on well. Not like Ulla and Spaghetti licking noses. They weren't getting on well. And not like Sing-Along and Freddy biting each other's fingers. They weren't getting on well. In fact, up on the wall was the getting on well chart. Every day Mr. Keenley had to decide who was getting on well and who was not getting on well. Malcolm felt worried. He was near the bottom of the getting on well chart. He wasn't getting on well at all. And this surprised him and made him sad. He felt like he was getting on well all the time. Like right now, as he figured out all these interesting reasons about why Billy was wearing the hat. The hat which may or may not have been his. So, he got on well with it. He wrote down Billy is wearing the hat because blue is the colour of his favourite football team. At the end of the lesson, everyone, even Ulla, Spaghetti, Sing-Along and Freddy, handed in their worksheets. Malcolm looked up at the worksheet chart. This was another chart, and it was next to the Getting On Well chart. After the worksheets were marked by Janet, everyone's name was put at the right place on the worksheet chart. If you got a good worksheet mark, you were out in front. If you got a bad worksheet mark, you were behind. So who is Janet, you say? Janet helps. She's not called a helper though, she is called an assistant. And a very nice assistant she is too. Janet likes Mr. Keenley. Oh yes. Uncle Gobb often said to Malcolm that he mustn't be behind. Malcolm thought about that as he looked at the worksheet chart. In fact, thinking about Uncle Gobb telling him that he mustn't be behind made him upset and angry. He was upset angry. He was upset-angry and angry-upset. I must do something about Uncle Gobb, he thought. He imagined that Uncle Gobb was standing in front of him. Look here, Uncle Gobb, he said in his mind. If I wasn't behind, someone else would be behind. That's the whole point about in front and behind. As long as there's an in front, there has to be a behind, like me. Here's my front, and here's my behind. We can't all be in front, can we? He said that last bit out loud, and Cracker Snacker heard him. No, Malk, we can't, said Cracker Snacker in his most helpful, hopeful voice. Still, that answer about blue being the colour of Billy's favourite football team was a killer answer. Surely, maybe he might be in front this time. Playtime, called out Mr. Keenley. Janet will be with you for playtime today, he said, and I'm asking you to make sure you're all very sensible. That includes you, Ulla, Spaghetti, Sing-Along and Freddie, and when she comes back with you, the head teacher has asked her to put all your names in the right place on the Behaving Sensibly at Playtime chart. Janet nodded in a very serious way. It was quite a big nod, bigger than a quick nod. It was an I'm taking this very seriously and I hope you are too nod. Malcolm sat trying to do a big nod too. He thought, I'm taking this very seriously and I hope you are too, as he sat there nodding. I saw that, Malcolm, said Mr. Keenley. Janet, make sure that Malcolm starts playtime very, very behind on the Behaving Sensibly at Playtime chart. Off you go. Oh no, said Mr. Cracker to Mr. Keenley. Malcolm wasn't not behaving sensibly at playtime. He was just practising his nodding. I know he was. He's like that, really. All right, said Mr. Keenley. I take your point. Why is he taking away my point? Thought Malcolm. I thought I'd just got a point for writing blue in the question about the hat. All the children filed out, and just as Malcolm walked past Mr. Keenley and Janet, he discovered two incredible, amazing and stunning things.